my silent suffering, and how I took revenge on the girl who ruined my life. Hey guys, I've been debating whether to share this part of my life for a long time. It's something I've carried with me since high school, and I think it's finally time to get it off my chest. What I went through shaped who I am today, and the satisfaction I eventually got from it was bittersweet. This is the story of how I survived my own personal hell and eventually got the revenge I so desperately needed. It all started the summer before my junior year of high school. My family had lived in the same small, quiet neighborhood for as long as I could remember. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. I had a few close friends, did well in school, and life was normal, simple, but nice. One day, rumors started spreading in the neighborhood that a wealthy family was moving into the huge house at the end of our street. It was one of those places that always seemed empty, too grand for the rest of the houses around it. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, moving trucks showed up, followed by a sleek black car with tinted windows. The new family had arrived. At first, they seemed nice enough. The father was a businessman, always in suits and traveling for work, while the mother was glamorous, the type of woman who always looked put together no matter the time of day. But the person who stood out the most was their daughter, Camilla. Camilla was my age, 16 at the time, and I remember being struck by how beautiful she was. She had this flawless, effortless grace about her, like someone who had never known a bad hair day. But it wasn't just her looks. When we first met, she seemed so perfect, polite, smart, well-spoken. She carried herself like someone older, someone who had been taught how to command a room without saying much at all. We got along surprisingly well. She introduced herself one afternoon when I was walking home from a friend's house. Camilla caught up to me with a friendly smile, complimenting my shoes, and just like that, we were talking. By the time we reached my house, I was convinced we'd become friends. I mean, she seemed genuinely nice, and I was excited at the prospect of having someone my age living so close by. That summer, our families even started spending time together. Camilla's parents would invite my family over for dinner or pool parties at their mansion. They were always so generous, so kind. My parents were thrilled, thinking we'd become close with this new wealthy family in the neighborhood. Everything seemed perfect, but then the new school year started and everything changed. When the fall semester started, I was excited to introduce Camilla to my friends. I had told them all about her over the summer, about how great she was, how lucky we were to have someone new in our small town. I thought she'd fit right in, but from the first day, something felt off. Camilla wasn't the friendly, charming girl I had gotten to know. At least, not toward me. It started small, little things that I brushed off at first. She'd ignore me in the hallways, even when I waved or tried to catch up with her. When we had classes together, she'd sit with other people, leaving me alone. I thought maybe she was just trying to adjust to a new school, but things escalated quickly. The subtle cold shoulder turned into outright hostility. Camilla started making snide comments about me, always when no one else was paying attention. She'd whisper insults under her breath, stuff like, "Did your parents buy that outfit from a thrift store?" Or, "You really think you're smart enough to pass this class?" Her words were like poison, slowly eating away at my self-confidence, and no one else seemed to notice. In front of others, Camilla was still the sweet, charming girl I had first met. She had a way of turning on the charm in front of teachers and classmates, making everyone think she was perfect. But behind closed doors, or when she knew no one else was watching, she became cruel. I didn't understand it. I hadn't done anything to her. We'd gotten along fine over the summer. Why was she suddenly treating me like dirt? I tried to talk to her, to ask if I had done something to upset her, but she just laughed in my face. "Don't act like we're friends," she'd say with a smirk, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're beneath me, always have been." Things escalated quickly after that. Camilla made it her mission to humiliate me every chance she got. She started spreading rumors about me around school, saying I was poor, that my parents couldn't afford basic things, that I was jealous of her and wanted to be her. None of it was true, but high school is brutal and people love to believe the worst. My friends, people I had known for years, started pulling away. They didn't want to be associated with me. I became the target of cruel jokes and whispers in the hallways. Everywhere I went, it felt like people were staring at me, laughing behind my back. And through it all, Camilla just smiled sweetly, pretending she had nothing to do with it. The worst part was that no one believed me, not my teachers, not my classmates, not even my parents. When I tried to explain what was happening, everyone acted like I was overreacting or being paranoid. My parents were especially dismissive. They'd say things like, "Oh, Camilla is such a nice girl. Maybe you're just misunderstanding her." It was infuriating. I felt like I was screaming into a void, like no one could see what was happening to me. My parents, in particular, seemed blinded by the charm of Camilla's family. We were constantly invited over for dinners and parties, and my parents were so dazzled by the wealth and generosity of Camilla's parents that they refused to see the truth. I began to feel like I was all alone in the world. My grades slipped, my confidence shattered, and I dreaded going to school every day. I was living in my own personal hell with no escape in sight. For a long time, I didn't know why Camilla was doing this to me. I racked my brain, trying to figure out what I had done to make her hate me so much. It wasn't until months later that I finally found out the truth, and it made everything worse. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation between Camilla and one of her new friends. I was in the bathroom, hiding in one of the stalls, trying to avoid the usual lunchtime torment. That's when I heard Camilla's voice outside the stall. "I can't believe you still bother with that girl," her friend said. "What's her deal anyway?" Camilla laughed. "Her? She's nothing, she's just pathetic. My parents told me to be nice to her family, but she's so boring. I mean, look at her. She's plain, she's poor, and she thinks she's on my level." It's hilarious. My heart sank as I listened to her continue. Camilla had been using me from the start. Her family had told her to befriend me because they wanted to maintain their image as the kind, generous neighbors. I was nothing more than a pawn in their game of social status. And when Camilla got bored, she turned on me, using her wealth and popularity to destroy my life simply because she could. It wasn't personal to her, it was a game. After that, things only got worse. Camilla's bullying intensified, and I fell deeper into isolation. My family still didn't believe me, even when I tried to explain what I had overheard. They thought I was being dramatic, that I was just jealous of Camilla's success and popularity. I felt completely powerless. I was living in a nightmare, and there was no way out. Every day was a struggle just to survive. I barely made it through the rest of high school. My grades suffered, and I lost most of my friends. I stopped caring about things I used to love, my hobbies, my future, everything. Camilla had taken away my sense of self-worth, and I didn't know how to get it back. But then something changed. As graduation approached, I realized I had one thing left: my determination. I was going to get out of that town, go to college, and start over. I was going to build a new life for myself, one that had nothing to do with Camilla or the nightmare she had put me through. I left for college that fall, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I threw myself into my studies, worked hard, and built new friendships. Slowly, I began to rebuild myself. The memories of high school still haunted me, but I learned how to push them aside, how to move forward. But I never forgot, and I never forgave. Fast forward several years, I had graduated from college with honors, landed a good job, and was starting to feel like I had my life back on track. I had worked hard to distance myself from the trauma of my high school years, but deep down, I knew that the anger and resentment I felt toward Camilla had never truly gone away. Then, one day, fate handed me an opportunity I could never have predicted. I was working at a marketing firm, steadily climbing the ranks, when a new hire was announced. I didn't pay much attention at first, but then I saw the name, Camilla. My heart raced when I saw her walk into the office that day. She looked just as polished and perfect as she had in high school, but this time, I wasn't the same insecure girl she had tormented. I was successful, confident, and in a much better place, and now, she was on my turf. At first, I wasn't sure how to handle it. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to move on and let the past stay in the past. But as the weeks went by, I could see that Camilla hadn't changed much. She still carried herself with that same sense of entitlement, still looked down on others as if the world revolved around her. And that's when I realized I wasn't going to let her get away with what she had done to me. I decided to play the long game. Camilla didn't remember me. Why would she? I had been just another pawn in her high school game of superiority. So I acted friendly, professional, never letting on that I knew exactly who she was. I learned everything I could about her, her weaknesses, her insecurities, her ambitions. Camilla had always been driven by her desire to be the best, to be admired. But now, in the real world, she wasn't the queen bee anymore. She was just another employee trying to make her way up the corporate ladder. Over the course of several months, I subtly undermined her at every opportunity. I accidentally let slip some of her mistakes to our boss, quietly took credit for her ideas, and positioned myself as the go-to person for important projects. Camilla, for all her arrogance, didn't realize what was happening. She thought she was still in control, still on top. But little by little, her reputation began to crumble. Our boss started losing faith in her, her colleagues distanced themselves, and eventually, she was passed over for a promotion she had been counting on. The look on her face when she realized I had been chosen for the promotion instead of her was priceless. But I wasn't done yet. The final part of my revenge came when I uncovered a major mistake Camilla had made on a project. It was big enough to cost the company a lot of money, but it hadn't come to light yet. I could have reported it immediately, but I waited. I wanted to savor this moment to make sure she felt the weight of her own failure. When the time was right, I brought the mistake to our boss's attention. Camilla tried to defend herself, but the evidence was clear. She had messed up badly. A few days later, she was fired. I won't lie, seeing her walk out of that office with her head down, humiliated and defeated, gave me a sense of satisfaction I can't even put into words. It felt like justice had finally been served. Now, as I write this, I realize that my revenge, while satisfying, didn't erase the pain Camilla caused me. It didn't undo the years of torment, the isolation, or the damage to my self-esteem. But it gave me closure. It gave me the power to stand up to someone who had taken so much from me. I'm not proud of the person I became during those months of plotting my revenge, but I am proud of the fact that I survived. I came out stronger, and I built a life for myself that no one, not even someone like Camilla, could take away from me. So yeah, that's my story. It's not a happy one, but it's mine. And sometimes that's enough.